So today we have this Australian Colonial Cedar chest of drawers that dates from around about 1880. Painted pink in the inside, baby blue on the outside. It has got all the original knobs and all the original escutcheons, but painted inside is going to be a bit of a pain. Now this chest is 150 years old. And we are going to be removing all the paint. Now we have these half bobbin columns and we have some nice turn feet, all original. And the crossbanding at the top is missing all down one side. And we can see the top that wasn't painted, so we do know that the chest is cedar. And the underside, you can see the old facet head nails. Nice wide boards of hoop pine. And these bobbin columns stuck on with the paint, literally. Now we've pulled the drawer out so we can have a look at the timber on the inside, and it is cedar. It's like a ribbon cedar there. We'll pull the other drawer out and then you can have another look. And we've got nice wide backboards as well. So yes, it's definitely like a ribbon cedar on the sides. And again, we've got those wide backboards made of pine. We've got our stripper ready. A good scraper. Now this is going to take quite a while to remove all this paint. And we'll have to buy another tin of stripper. So we're just going to soak the old paint with the stripper and keep it as wet as we can until it starts reacting with the old paint. And we really hope that they've painted over the original varnish. We never know what's underneath the finish until we strip the paint off. Now there is a cream coloured paint underneath the white paint, and then there's like an orangey tan coloured paint under the cream paint, and it does look like they have painted over the original varnish, so that's really good. Now all these half bobbin columns are really fiddly, and we're just trying to loosen up all the paint with a scraper. And again, we're getting down to the cedar now. Now the cross banding at the top is also cedar, and this chest is all solid cedar. There is no veneer on the chest at all. But all the banding is missing at the back there, so we'll have to find some cedar when we're restoring the banding. And the paint is really sticky and messy on these columns. But at least we've got the original finish under the paint. And we've got some green paint there as well, you can see, underneath the white paint. So I would say it was painted cream with green knobs and green columns at one stage. If you wonder what that noise is, we do live near a highway, and when we speed the video up, the cars that go by, that's what makes that sound. We have tried removing it in Premiere Pro. And we're getting down to that nice cedar wood now. We'll pour some alcohol on with some steel wool. We use 0 grade steel wool, that helps take off the paint with alcohol. We don't want to get the chest wet. We're hoping we can strip the chest without sanding later. And now for the other side. This is the next day. It has taken quite a while to strip all the paint off this chest, and we just did a little bit each day. And we're getting down to the cedar now. This is more of a sort of a golden colour cedar than a red cedar. A lot of these cedar chests with the half bobbin columns were more country pieces. And the cedar that they sourced was paler in colour. And we will have to give it a good rub to get all the paint out. Now the top, which wasn't painted. Now quite often these chests, because the grain is coarse, they did grain fill the chest of drawers when they made it, and they would use plaster and they'd mix a coloured ochre in with the plaster. So even though it does look like there is still paint in the grain, that is not paint, that is actually plaster. And we're just going to leave that in there and try and retain as much of the original finish that was underneath the paint as we can. And we're just leaving the stripper on the columns to soak away. It is on very, very thick on the columns. And we'll pour our alcohol on the top. And that white fleck that you see in the grain, that is not paint, that is actually grain filler. You see it with a lot of these chests. We can rub a lot of the grain filler out with steel wool and alcohol, but that will blend in anyway when we polish the chest. And there's a fair bit of that cross banding missing, so we will source some old cedar that will blend in and match, and we'll make some cross banding for the side and the front. Inside, nice big wide boards of pine. I did skimp around on the timber. I suppose timber would have been very plentiful back in the 1880s. I'm just using a utility blade that will help me get into the cracks and crevices. Very sticky, the paint. And then when we get most of the paint off and loose, we can rub it off with some steel wool. and then hopefully we can pop these columns off. Sometimes they are screwed in from the back, and then other times they're just nailed on. It's a beautiful colour there on the side. And we're just going to lift the columns up. And then we'll clean those as well when we've got them off. And under the columns you can see the original colour where it wasn't painted. And the same with this side. Just gently prise up around the nail. So we've got most of the carcass stripped now, and you can actually see the grain filler that was underneath the columns. So you know that that is definitely not paint that is on the chest. And now for the drawers. Now the knobs are stuck on with the paint. They have wooden screw backs, and hopefully they will just turn off when we remove the paint. It has got all the original knobs and those original round brass escutcheons, which are usually missing in these old chests, and it has got all the locks as well, which quite often they are missing as well. So even though it is painted, the paint can sometimes protect the finish and stop the hardware from falling off. So you can see the orange paint, like an orangey tan colour, and then you can see the original polish underneath. We use plenty of stripper. We want to get that finish wet all the time, so it just keeps dissolving. I normally do stay away from painted chests of drawers because they are so labour intensive, but it did seem a shame to just leave this one the way it was. Now the knobs are pine, so we will have to stain those when we polish the chest, which will be in future videos. We will do the playlist so that you can follow the full restoration. It's quite a nice colour. Again, we're very, very fortunate that they didn't sand the finish and then paint it. And the knobs just screw out. Sometimes they can be glued in, and that can be a bit of a hassle as well. But fingers crossed, none of the knobs will be glued. So now we're going to start removing the paint on the second long drawer and see what sort of grain we've got underneath the paint. And we'll just use some steel wool to get the paint off the knobs. Again, plenty of alcohol, rubbing with lots of pressure just to rub the rest of that paint out. It's definitely a lovely colour. Sort of a cross between a golden colour with a bit of red. And the last long drawer. Now we will also be stripping all the pink paint out of the inside of the drawers, but we won't film that. It will definitely take us the best part of a day to get all that paint out, and we are going to have to do some repairs on the drawers as well. And now that we've got all the paint off around the knobs, we can unscrew those knobs as well. And then we've just got the 2 hat drawers and the 2 small glove drawers to do. And you can see that we have removed all that paint, and that little bit of white fleck is grain filler. And those lovely round brass escutcheons. And there's a double lever lock in each drawer as well, a brass one. And the hat drawers. They call them hat drawers because they used to put their hats in them. Would you fit a top hat in there? Maybe. This chest is definitely of smaller proportions than the usual ones. It is quite small. The bicentenary of Australia was celebrated in 1988. It marked 200 years since the arrival of the first fleet of British convict ships in Sydney in 1788. So in the 1980s and 1990s, cedar chests were fetching insane amounts of money. They were so popular, everyone wanted one. But now they're not really worth that much at all, and you can definitely pick up some bargains. Will they ever be worth a lot of money again? Who knows? We used to go looking for them a lot before the internet. We'd get the paper at 5 o'clock in the morning and find out which garage sales were close to us or deceased estates, and we would look everywhere for them. And if you found one, it was like finding treasure. So hopefully we can bring this old girl back to her former glory. We're just cleaning up the rest of the stripper on the glove drawers. And we're getting that lovely colour now. Now we've just got the turned legs to strip. Bit fiddly again. Now these are normally attached with a big dowel that goes into the wood, the plank of wood that's attached to the moulding, and quite often they are nailed in place with some handmade facet nails, which we will be able to see when we get the paint off. But the legs are on very firm, so we won't need to do too much to the legs. I just hope they are cedar. Quite often the legs are pine. But they are cedar, so that's even better. just dissolving all the paint, and then we'll get in with some steel wool and we can scrape all that paint off. And we can see the cedar timber now. Again, we're just using a utility blade. It's pretty good for getting off the paint on these rounded surfaces. And then some steel wool and alcohol. You don't want to let the stripper go dry. If the alcohol evaporates from the stripper, the paint stripper will end up going hard again. And you can see those facet head nails there as well, where they've nailed them on. They just whack them straight in. Now we will put the chest out the front so we can see the finished item. Well, the stripped item is not finished yet. There will be more videos on this item, on this chest. So there she is. We've got all the paint off. Pine knobs. The rest is cedar. And the sides and the insides of the drawers are also pine. And you can see all that grain filler in the top. And all the moulding is missing, all the cross banding there. We'll have to make some more there. And also at the back, there's a piece missing here. Now we do know that this is grain filler, it is not paint, but you can see that the grain filler is underneath the columns, which didn't have any paint on them. And that does blend in quite well with shellac. So that's just about it for this one. Stay tuned, more videos will be on the way. And all the pine bottoms, all that horrible pink paint is gone. Okay, well that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.